Hans Christian Andersen was born in Odense in Denmark in 1805. His mother was uneducated. His father was a poor man, had certain ideas of pretension that he was descended from a noble family, which was not the case. But Hans Christian Andersen himself became a friend of the King of Denmark. He became a friend of Charles Dickens. He led the most extraordinary life. He never married. He never had children. But he wrote for children, and he wrote about love.
My favourite fairy tale of all is The Emperor's New Clothes. And one of the reasons that I like it so much is that it just shows how people are sheep. How many people will just blindly follow something if they are told that is the way it's supposed to be. And there is the king, the emperor, and he is walking down the streets of his kingdom totally naked, and yet all of the people, all of his subjects, all of his courtiers are all saying, oh, look at this beautiful cape, look at his beautiful trousers, look at his beautiful crown.
Well, I selected the Little Match Girl because I'm so fond of it as a story. I think there's obviously it's a very sad story, and there's a very melancholy side to it. But at the same time, there's something really optimistic and beautiful about when she's in the alleyway and the things that she sees and how warm they make her feel. And I guess the moment when she dies, she's taken by a grandmother who she adores, and she's so happy to see her. And then the description of where she goes is very nice, that she's taken to a warmer, happier place. So even though it's a very sad story, there's something very beautiful and warm for her in the story, I think.
Yes, I had a mother who had a lovely singing voice, and she used to also sing stories to me. And the one that I'm reading today is called Thumbelina. And there is a song, actually, of Thumbelina. I'm not going to sing it to you. But she used to sing it too, and singing like with nursery rhymes, all those things are, I think, much more important than perhaps people realise, because I know that now perhaps reading is not so appreciated. But these stories for young children, when you hop into bed with your child and you cuddle up and you read together, you never forget this. It's something that forms some sort of inner strength, because you feel very safe. Although it makes you quite fearful stories. They should about goodies and baddies and things, and so you get quite... But you're safe because you're being read these stories.
Well, I've just done a reading of The Nightingale, and it wasn't a story I knew terribly well. Most of the others I was more familiar with, but this one I wasn't. And it's beautiful, and it has a great moral to it, how all of us work best under freedom. And I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. The Emperor of China. I got to be the Emperor of China. I've always wanted to do that.
I read one of the greatest fairy stories, one of the greatest stories for children ever written, The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. It's a story I knew when I suppose my mother read it to me when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I loved it because it was beautiful. But when you read it now as an adult, you see in it so much more. It's the story, really, the primal story about bullying and about self-belief. And in an age now where we're concerned about how gay children, for example, feel different and are bullied and are made to feel dreadful and made to feel different and not part of the ordinary, in a world in which people who are not good at athletics, for example, are made to feel weedy and geeky, in a world in which anybody doesn't fit, as a child in particular. the news is that it can get better, and that you can grow into something splendid, and that the bullies and those who think everybody should be the same are the ones who always end up as the drunken tramps sitting in the doorways. The revenge is for the geeks and the gays. They run Hollywood, they run the media, they run the internet, and they were the ones who were always treated like ugly ducklings. But that's perhaps being a little harsh. It's a sweeter story than that, really. It is just a genuinely marvellous tale. I don't think I could love anybody who wasn't moved and engaged by it. It's particularly important to be reading it for Unicef, which is one of the great organisations in the world that looks after children and has done for decades. It goes into dangerous places, and it looks after the educational and the cultural and the living standards that children all around the world have, and tries to improve them, and improves them in all kinds of ways. And not least, of course, is culture and education, and in giving them a chance to achieve their potential. And that's also what the story of the Ugly Duckling is about achieving your potential. Is from a scant childhood to a full adult.
Just been reading one of my favourite stories, the story of the Snow Queen and Kay and Gerda, and I think it's something that's enduring, this idea of being terrified, the idea of being kidnapped, the idea of being seduced into something which seems to be much nicer and finding it's much worse, and being saved by the love of somebody who drops tears on you, and the beautiful recurring image of a rose blooming and summertime. Just gorgeous.
I think Roger Moore, who reached out to me Sir Roger, who reached out to me to be involved, as asked some of the other UNICEF ambassadors to be involved too. And it's an easy thing for us to do. And it's a charity that is very close to my heart. I've been working with UNICEF since 2004, and I've always been so impressed with the work that they do. The kids that I've met who they help are incredible, spirited little people.
I'm just delighted to be able to read these beautiful stories, fairy stories, because they are, as far as I'm concerned, some of the best things that you can do for your child is to read fairy stories very early on, because there's a lot of wisdom in there.
Go to GivingTales.com, where you'll find me and many of my friends reading tales from Hans Christian Andersen, the proceeds of which will go to UNICEF.